Stop scrolling. What this billionaire CEO saw a struggling waitress do for his autistic son changed everything: his heart, his fortune, and even the future of his company. If you love stories that touch the soul and expose hidden kindness, hit subscribe right now, because this one will stay with you long after it ends. Billionaire CEO Alexander Grant, a man whose face filled business magazines but whose heart had slowly calcified through years of loss and corporate wars, stepped into the quiet family diner on the edge of town only because his private jet had been grounded by a sudden storm and because his 8-year-old son Noah, who had autism and struggled with unexpected changes, was spiraling into an anxiety episode that his exhausted nanny could no longer manage. The diner wasn't the sort of place Alexander visited. The vinyl seats, flickering neon, and clattering dishes clashed sharply against the polished glass offices he lived in, but desperation had pushed him through the door. Noah covered his ears tightly, rocking slightly, overwhelmed by the sound of plates and the drone of the old ceiling fan, and everyone inside was staring except one person: Maya Carter, a black waitress in her mid-20s who was wiping down a table with one hand while holding a tray with the other, moving with a quiet confidence that suggested she had learned how to survive chaos long ago. Instead of staring at Noah the way the other customers did, she placed her tray down, knelt beside him with remarkable gentleness, and whispered something no one else could hear. Alexander watched, stunned, as the boy slowly lowered his hands, his breathing steadied, and he allowed her to guide him to a booth. Maya brought out fries arranged in a perfect circle. "A son," she called it softly, and Noah's eyes lit up as if she had read a language that the rest of the world never bothered to learn. Alexander sat across from them, thunderstruck at how easily she reached his son, something even high-priced specialists struggled with. Maya explained calmly that her younger brother had autism, and she'd spent years learning how to bring him comfort in overwhelming spaces. As she spoke, Alexander noticed how customers smiled at her, how the staff respected her, how she managed the whole room with ease. But there was something off, a faint tension in her smile, a heaviness in her eyes that suggested she was carrying far more than the diner's evening rush. When she stepped away, the cook whispered to Alexander that Maya worked double shifts, cared for her sick mother, and was studying psychology at night with dreams bigger than her circumstances allowed. Alexander found himself strangely moved by the way she balanced strength and tenderness, noticing more in 10 minutes than he had in years of corporate interactions. But just as he was about to thank her, Noah began humming, a melodic pattern he only used when he sensed danger, and a tall man in a cheap suit burst through the diner door shouting Maya's name. Her posture stiffened instantly. The man slammed an envelope onto the counter, accusing her of owing him money, snarling that she had stolen his client, and threatening to get her fired. The room fell silent as Alexander rose slowly, an unfamiliar heat crawling up his spine. But before he could intervene, Maya gently placed herself between the man and Noah, shielding the boy like he was her own family. The owner rushed over, forcing the man out, but the damage was done. Tears glistened in Maya's eyes as she muttered apologies that Alexander felt she never should have owed. Something shifted inside him that moment, a crack in the hardened shell he had built since Noah's mother died. He didn't know it yet, but this woman, this waitress who had fed his son fries shaped like sunshine, was about to rewrite the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. The next morning, Alexander returned to the diner with Noah, pretending it was for breakfast. Though the truth was more complicated, he felt an unfamiliar pull to understand Maya, to thank her properly, to help her escape whatever storm had forced that angry man to confront her in public. But when he stepped inside, Maya wasn't working. Instead, the owner handed him the same envelope the man had thrown the night before, which she had left behind in panic. Inside were legal threats, pages accusing Maya of breaching a contract with a private care company she once worked for, claiming she owed thousands for quitting early to take care of her sick mother. The signature at the bottom belonged to a corporate executive whose name Alexander recognized: Elias Rowan, a rival CEO known for exploiting loopholes to trap employees in predatory agreements. Alexander's jaw tightened. He knew corporate cruelty when he saw it. He had once been part of it. Determined to help, he asked the owner where she lived, but the man only gestured toward a low-income housing complex miles away. Alexander drove there with Noah, who clutched the fries sun-drawing Maya had given him. When they arrived, they found Maya on the sidewalk, arguing with two men loading her mother's furniture into a rental truck. The landlord had evicted them for being 2 weeks late on rent, despite her pleas. Alexander watched as she fought tears, trying to protect her mother's dignity, lifting heavy boxes with trembling arms. It struck him painfully that she was doing everything alone. Without thinking, he stepped in, ordering his security detail to help move her belongings, and even though Maya protested, embarrassed, he gently reassured her that she had helped his son when no one else could. But as they loaded the truck, a car screeched around the corner. Elias Rowan stepped out with the same man who had confronted her at the diner. They accused her again, this time threatening to take her to court immediately, implying they would seize her mother's medical equipment. Alexander's fury ignited. Elias smirked when he saw him, mocking him for babysitting waitresses now, and hinting that he had plans to sabotage Grant Industries in an upcoming merger. The tension escalated until Noah suddenly let out a sharp cry, overwhelmed by the shouting. Maya rushed to him instantly, placing her hands over his ears, guiding him to breathe in sync with her, and Alexander watched, humbled by how quickly she brought calm where he, with all his wealth, could not. Something inside him snapped. He stepped between her and Elias, revealing his identity with a cold steeliness that shocked everyone present. Elias' smugness vanished. Alexander warned him that any further harassment would trigger a corporate investigation, media exposure, and personal lawsuits. The man paled. After they fled, Maya broke down, not from fear, but from relief, and Alexander realized she had been fighting battles for years with no shield but her own resilience. He offered her temporary housing for her and her mother, access to his company's legal team, and transportation so she could continue her night classes. She hesitated, pride warring with necessity, until Noah silently approached her and placed the Fry's sun drawing in her hand, whispering, "Please don't go." It was the first sentence he had spoken directly to someone outside his father in months. Maya's resolve melted, and she accepted. Over the next weeks, she and Noah formed an unbreakable bond. She taught him grounding exercises, helped him communicate through drawing, and even coaxed laughter from him on days Alexander believed impossible. Alexander watched them together, feeling something he hadn't felt since his wife died, the sense that family didn't have to end in tragedy. But just when life was settling, a devastating twist struck. Someone leaked a story to the press accusing Maya of manipulating the Grant family for money. The article included photos of her leaving Alexander's home with her mother, painting her as a gold digger. Sponsors pulled from her psychology program. The diner fired her out of fear of bad publicity. Hate messages flooded her phone. Alexander immediately suspected Elias Rowan, but Maya, hurt and frightened, thought the chaos in his life was too dangerous for Noah and for her mother, and she disappeared without telling him where she went. For the first time in years, Alexander felt powerless, and Noah regressed, calling her name at night. The world felt sharp and cold again, and Alexander realized that unless he found her, he would lose not just the woman who helped his son, but the one who had unknowingly awakened something in him he thought had died forever. Alexander launched a private search for Maya, reviewing security footage, combing through records, even stepping away from his multi-million-dollar merger to personally investigate Elias Rowan. Meanwhile, Maya had taken shelter in a small town 2 hours away, working anonymously at a night shift cleaning job to avoid more harassment, believing the world she had entered with Alexander was too massive, too dangerous, too exposed for someone like her. But fate intervened when Noah, who had been drawing pictures of her every day, recreated the diner scene with astonishing detail and accuracy. Alexander recognized the pattern, a clue in the artwork pointing toward a specific highway marker only visible from one direction. He drove the entire route until he found the small town, and there she was, leaving a convenience store late at night with medicine for her mother. When she saw him, she froze, torn between relief and fear, but Alexander gently explained everything. The smear campaign had been orchestrated by Elias, the merger had collapsed under investigation, and he had publicly defended her, revealing the truth to the media, that she had saved his son's emotional well-being and had been harassed by a rival executive. The world responded with overwhelming support. People demanded justice, autism advocacy groups reached out, and universities offered her scholarships. But Maya didn't return because of the publicity, she returned because Noah ran to her faster than his father had ever seen, wrapping his arms tightly around her. Back in the city, her life transformed. With Alexander's legal team, she won a major settlement against Elias's company, and instead of keeping the money for herself, she used a portion to open a community center for families with autistic children, naming it the Sunroom, inspired by the Fry's sun she once made for Noah. Alexander funded the rest, but only under the condition that she run it her way. Their bond deepened into something neither of them expected, a slow burn connection rooted in trust, shared purpose, and the way Noah's eyes sparkled brightest when they were together. The final twist came months later when an anonymous whistleblower exposed Elias Rowan's crimes, leading to his arrest for corporate fraud, and the video of Maya comforting Noah went viral worldwide, not as a spectacle but as a lesson in empathy. Parents, teachers, and specialists praised her instinct, her intuition, her compassion. Alexander finally confessed his feelings one quiet evening at the sunroom, telling her she had not just changed his son's life, she had changed his. Maya, after years of surviving storms alone, finally allowed herself to lean into someone who valued her strength. The story spread across the country. A billionaire CEO whose world was saved not by wealth, but by the kindness of a waitress who understood what no amount of money could buy. And as Noah stood between them, holding their hands, Maya whispered that she had never felt more at home.